Okay, guys, I'm here today with Gordon Ryan. Huge honor for me. Guys, Gordon just shot an entire instruction all about his guard retention, which might be like the best guard retention no-gi nowadays. Like, I watch his matches all the time, and nobody gets close to do anything on him. So, how do you do it, Gordon?
So, first of all, guard retention is one of those things that's hard to teach because there's almost an infinite amount of possibilities. Your partner could put their hands here versus there, and there's so many reactions that you can give and they can give. And it's just, if I was to teach, or if anyone was to teach guard retention from every different position, you'd be there for hundreds or thousands of hours. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give overarching themes throughout the instructional where we break it down conceptually, and then we go into specific positions and we apply those same themes and achieve those goals to retain and to attack. Okay. For example, I've broken it down into two separate categories: retention versus loose passing and retention versus tight passing. Okay, where you have a certain set of goals for when your partner's passing you loose to retain your guard and to go into attack, and when your partner's passing you with tight passes like body locks and half guard, things like that, when you have a separate set of goals. Okay, and these unify during a live sparring session where your partner can at any time go from passing with loose passes into passing with tight passes or vice versa. Okay, so we have an overarching theme and we have goals: loose passing versus tight passing, and then we have specific goals and specific positions that we can go over as we dive into it. And it's broken into loose passing versus tight passing, and then the subsections will be seated guard versus loose passing, supine guard versus loose passing, so leg pommeling, ashigarami, counters, things like that, and then seated guard versus tight passing, body locks, tight waist passing, things like that, and then half guard, flattened out, retention from a top half guard, where your opponent switches their hips, where your opponent goes for under over passes, where your opponent has a top head and arm, double underhooks. How can we retain our guard and go into attacks from there? And of course, it's always not just how can I retain my guard, but it's also how can I retain my guard and go into an attack right from the retention. Okay, you cannot be in situations where you're caught in a defensive cycle where your partner is just throwing your legs to the side, touring onto this way, touring onto that way, and you're just defending until you eventually get past. You need to be in a situation where your partner starts an attack, starts a guard pass, you retain, and then immediately go into an attack, so you can go from a defensive cycle into an offensive cycle, and you can start attacking your partner rather than having just pass until eventually they beat you and you get your guard pass to your back taken or what have you.
No, that's awesome, Gordon. So, and I love watching when you are competing because it sounds almost like you're manipulating your opponent to do what you want in order to not get your guard passing. So can you just give one example of what you're talking about when they're doing the standing pass, when they're doing the knee pass, and just so everybody can kind of get one visual context as well?
So, for example, when we're talking about an opponent who's standing over us, okay? When Bernardo's standing over me, for example, okay, my goals are to keep him in front of me and to create as many points of contact as I can with him to constantly off balance him and go into attacks. Okay, so if I can create a situation where I control him, I have various different forms of leg entanglements, I can control him and I can go into my attacks. Okay, when he's standing passing, his goal is always to outflank me and get either past the hip line or past the shoulder line where he can pass to north-south. Okay, so I'm trying to keep him in front of me and keep him off balance. He's trying to outflank me and get past my hip and my shoulder line. Okay, now you have to understand that there's a difference between passing the legs and passing the guard. Okay, so when Bernardo throws my legs to the side, he's loose passing. But then in order to actually pass my guard, he has to come down and start tight passing to control my head and my shoulders, and now he can actually solidify a pass. Okay, so your goals when you have someone in front of you is to keep him in front of you, or when someone loose passing, is to keep him in front of you and keep him constantly off balanced. Okay, and if he does outflank you, how can we put him back in front of us? But when Bernardo outflanks me, and now he drops down to tight passing, now the goals change. Okay, now Bernardo is tight passing and he has to control my head. So my goals change from keeping him in front of me to now denying him the ability to control my head and shoulders. So as he goes to start passing me, I can deny the head control and I can put him back in front of me and then go into reguards. Okay, so your general idea is when someone's loose passing, they're always trying to outflank you past the hip and past the shoulder lines to pass the side control, mount, or north-south. Okay, you want to keep them in front of you. And in general, when your partner's tight passing, like a half guard, for example, and he's a top head and arm, now my goals change. Now I can keep him in front of me all I want, but he's still, he can still pummel his legs in and start to pass me, okay? The main thing I'm looking for here is the ability to, what I'm looking for here is to deny him the ability to control my head and shoulders, okay? So now as he goes to start passing me, if I can pummel a butterfly hook in, for example, as he goes to start passing me, if I can free my head and shoulders, now he's tight passing, and if he can't control my head and shoulders, he can't actually pass my guard, okay? And then I can go to follow-up attacks and recover from there, okay? So and it's always a recovery right into an attack. So when he's standing passing, I'm looking to keep him in front of me, keep him off balance, and find ways to put him back in front of me, provided he does outflank me. But when he's tight passing, and these can happen interchangeably, where he starts loose passing, then goes tight passing, or vice versa. When he's tight passing, I'm looking to always deny him the ability to control my head. If you think about it, there's no way that your partner can actually pass your guard into side control or mount unless they control your head. If Bernardo's here and he's past my legs, sure, he's past my legs, but he doesn't control my head and shoulders. When he goes to solidify a pass into side control, he can't because he doesn't control my head, okay? So you have different goals when your partner's loose passing versus your partner's tight passing. And you have to be able to recognize these and change them as they come.
Oh, Gordon, last question here. It's also my question. I have trained with you, I know what you do, but what do you do against the over-under pass and double under pass?
Okay, so he goes over-under first. Okay, you have to understand that this pass is completely contingent upon your partner's head position relative to your hip. Okay?
That's true.
So if Bernardo can keep his chin pinned to my left hip, he can pass me. So my entire thing, the second I feel him move into this position, is to get his head to my right hip. So I take a cup like so, and I just catch Bernardo's head. What I don't want is for him to drive my knee to the floor, or my hip to the floor, and to start stepping over my leg. So initially, I keep my right knee up high, so he can't step over my leg, and I address his head position. Okay, so even if he steps over my leg from here, if I can, or just I step over the knee, same happen. Okay? Even if he gets here, I can still windshield wiper his head to this side. And now I can close my knee on top of Bernardo's back and neck. So when he goes to drive his chin across to the opposite side now, I can always invert my right knee and free my knee.
Yep.
So this pass is completely contingent upon your partner's head position being on your far hip. So the second Bernardo dives into place and he goes to start putting pressure on me, I block the hip from him stepping over my leg, and I address his head position. So as he goes to start passing, I move his head across to the right hip, and now we can easily bring our knees back inside.
Yeah, and that's exactly what bothers me the most. Yeah. And what about the double under?
So double unders, okay, is very different, all right? Bernardo's always gonna first look to start taking my hips and putting them over my head, okay? Now he's gonna start to look to flank me either direction. So he's gonna look to go long arm, short arm with various hand positions, and then eventually outflank me and control my head and my shoulders into a side control. The second I see Bernardo going to start locking his hands in a double unders, I'm going to immediately address his hand position. So I take two hands and I just grab Bernardo's wrist like so. Now, as he goes to start stacking me, I just straighten my legs. I drive my hips forward so that my body comes into one straight line, like so. If I just try to push his hands off here, you notice I push him into my own thighs. So I straighten my body, and now I just frame with his hands, and now I just pull my knees down like so. So my hips come up and down. Bernardo needs to be able to control my legs above the knees. So my goal is to push his hands below the knees. So as he goes to start stacking me, I straighten my legs, and now when he goes to start driving me forwards, I drop the hips. And now I angle to one side, I invert a knee, and now we can bring our knees back inside, and we're safe.
So it's all about like not letting our opponent keep the control for him.
Yeah, so control you above the knees.
Got it, man, that's amazing. Yeah, guys, you guys can see like how much knowledge he has about every aspect of guard passing, and that might explain like why everybody doesn't even get close to do anything on him when they're passing. So guys, Gordon just shot this entire instruction all about guard retention for no gi, and it's going to be at bjjfanatics.com soon, so make sure you check it out, and maybe by the time you're watching it's already there. Thanks so much, Gordon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Please help me out to grow my YouTube channel. Just click subscribe. And to watch more videos, just click under see more videos. I hope you enjoyed.
BJJFanatics.com. Use the promo code YouTubeFaria to get 10% off any instructional video. Improve your jiu-jitsu faster.